Well, thank you. It's not the first time as keynote, but it's I think this you can hear me. Okay, I'm sorry. So this time I'd like to show you my presentation, especially related to to expand the East Asian Association to Asian Association. And this keynote is not an independent keynote, only a prelude to the following roundtable. And so I distinguished persons from America and I think from Germany, Munich, also online. But here we have Julia and Jenny are there. And then, so for the roundtable, I would like to talk about something. So thank you very much for attending here. So I survived people in the last 3-4 days. You are probably very tired, but please hear me from about 30 minutes. So living spaces is my original concept in the last 10 years, much more. And nowadays, the climate crisis caused by humans who would like to survive by modifying the natural environment is inextricably linked to the crisis of human systems. So my not old friend, my friend Donald Rooster has formulated for the roundtable. It's 7 key questions. Why do we need a transnational approach to the Asian environment? Should we continue to emphasize a colonial or post-colonial framework? Should an Asian environmental history society be only interested in Asian history? Should the society recruit members from outside Asia, especially those who work on Asian topics? Where do the Pacific, Indian, and Arctic oceans belong in our agenda of research and self-definition? What can environmental historians who work within Asia offer to their counterparts living elsewhere in the world? What role should our Asian-focused society play in the International Congress of Environmental History Organizations? So we have 7 questions, and then after my keynote is in 5 presentations. I don't know exactly, but in the round table is these 7 questions in details discussed. So I would like to introduce myself. I have finished my PhD in Germany, in Gießen, near to Frankfurt am Main, and then I have moved from Germany to Japan. So originally I'm Japanese, but my study is mainly have had in German. So I'm economic historian, but in German, I'm a medieval and early modern historian, especially for Germany. And then I'm a local historian and not German history. I have never written that one. Is only, for example, about the Wuppertal or about a region in near to Kyoto, Kasa County, and so on. It's I'm always engaged in local history. And then I have described here for Japan, I'm now engaged in researching for 7 or 8 places, and nowadays also in Bangladesh, and probably next future with my colleague Masahide Ishizuka, probably in Gobi Desert area. So I'm a local historian, not a national history. I have never written that one. So only 30 minutes. I hope I can finish to have next roundtable. So at first, environmental history clarifying nature's inequality. we have discussed as an environmentalist so much about nature, but nature's inequality probably not so in clear definition and clear discussion. And then characteristics of the Asian monsoon region and coming to changing cultural landscapes in Japan and keyword resilience-oriented village information. And I hope is some conclusions. So I have already said I'm originally German historian, and especially early modern times. And I like philosophical thought. And at first, I would like to quote Immanuel Kant, zum ewigen Frieden is for peace word, 1795. The condition of peace among human beings who live beside each other is not a natural situation, status naturalis, for the natural state is rather a condition of war. In other words, although there is not always an outbreak of hostilities, nevertheless, there is a constant threat that this will occur. The state of peace must therefore be established. You know, all it's a national organizations is coming from these quotes. And one more point. Now, while nature has seen to it that human beings could live in all regions of the earth, she has, like a despot, also willed that they ought to live all over the earth, even when they had no inclination to do so, and even without assuming that this ought is linked to an idea of duty arising from a moral law which would bind them to her. I'm sorry. Probably it's better for me to speak. So from the beginning, I would like to mention that nature is not equal, and we must live there, or we must born there. We cannot select that one. So, and then what is the Asian monsoon? It's so many descriptions there. It's not necessary to show you, but projected change in the frequency of extreme precipitation events. You know, here, Tibetan Plateau, Southeast Asia, or Ocean Far East, it's here, it's extended from 8 to 9 or 11. In comparison with the world, it's so impressive for Asian world. It's so difficult for the next centuries. And you know quite well about the rice area in Asia is so big, but maize area, wheat area is almost all of the such crops area we have in Asia. But this, I like this figures, analysis and wrote my colleague Tor Terao, meteorologist, is in comparison with Europe, North America, Asia, it's a big difference between the precipitation and temperature. Is I see it's we can see this one. It's from Asian. It's from under 500 to more than 3,500 millimeter precipitation. So I have already said I am local historian. To see localities in Japan is always different in comparison with European studies. So I hope in next General Assembly, we can establish a new association, and probably we have third association in the world. We have already American Society for Environmental History, European Society for Environment History, and probably Asian Association whole environmental history. But it's open in the next General Assembly we can discuss, and then what kind of mission statement of the new association will be needed, discussed in the roundtable, I think. So I have many tragedy, or it's a Japanese landscape. It's small rivers, it's fresh water is flowing, and so cultivated for rice field, but nowadays almost abandoned. We have so many places, abandoned areas is the rice fields. In early modern times, almost all the Japanese fields are rice fields, naturally other fields, other crops of there, but we have so many places such change we can find. Why? It's broken houses, naturally, it's easy to say from the rural area to Tokyo or other urban area is moving, it's clear. But why we cannot use such a natural conditions? So I'm going back to the early modern times. It's in Japan, in early modern times, it's quite important and quite, so not selective, but it's so different from the other world's historical materials. So intensively, we have information about each village. So it's a main information are concentrated on each village, and from each village we can find a regional characteristics. So not from the overhead, but to the individual village, but we have at first individual villages information, because early modern times village as a unit to pay tax or village autonomy is always important, because the village people has own responsibility to sustain their village, and crop fields, rice fields, and other mountain resources and so on. And so in this sense, landed population survey on every village we have. Naturally, also, historical materials exist, not all of Japan, but we have so, and we can use that one. But with the birth of the modern Western style state, after the Meiji area, detailed local information caused to be accumulated. I'm sorry, ceased to be accumulated. Of course, autonomous efforts by residents have continued in individual areas, but local communities are rapidly exhausted. But it's most important point for me to show you, it's after in the Meiji area, not dramatically changed until 1950s. Almost a system has existed, but around after the World War II and 1950 to 70s has changed dramatically. So long time we have. So it's an eyesight test. Probably you can see two automobiles or not. Yeah, it's a, so I drone picture. I'm sorry, it's a online audience, online as colleagues. They cannot see this one. So in typical Japanese village style, mountains and rivers, and so along the mountains, we have many settlements and so on. It's a flooded area, but it's always, so soil is good. So I think 50 minutes. Yeah. This materials compiled in Meiji period, I have already said, Japanese early modern times, basically the information for each village. And then period to period, each information gathered or county description. So until the first half of the Meiji period, overall or Japan, for a county, such a description, topographic description, and according to each village. So in details, I cannot show you, but today's main argument is nature's differences or the nature's inequality. And for example, these soils style or the soil's characteristics is described. It's normal nowadays mapping. It's here. I would like to show some example from Kyoto. It's a northern part of Kyoto, not directly from the city of Kyoto. So it's my own ongoing project. It's not clear, but from the description, it's white area is drought risk area, and blue one is flooding risk area. That means it's in the county. Within a county, it's so different. Naturally, it's a mountain areas, big rivers, or kind of other areas, and precipitation style is naturally different. So we must see at first the natural difference, and also the soil's color. I have at first found it's yellow soil. Probably you, within your audience, some people are specialized in such a soil problem, but red or brown. And this here circle is relatively good. Here is so in central city, it's a castle town in such time, and near to the castle town, its village is relatively small. And then it's a relatively big circle is a good harvest, it will be possible. So another sample is not from Kyoto, but from the Amakusa Island facing to East China Sea. It's flooded, but in next year, it's repaired by the works of inhabitants, and government helped them to work and to give their money. And then within only 1 year to the next harvest is possible. So much evidence we have such a thing. So I think not the last slide, but what is that? So we can describe only the viewpoint of humans, but if you see from horses' eyes or cattle's eyes, this area is Tosa area fronting to the Pacific Ocean. It's so clear difference. Horses are more in western part, and cattle living more the eastern part. But I don't know exactly what is that. I'm now analyzing. Probably the horses is grasses or some kind of, windy is from the sea is more important. My colleagues there could analyze probably the wind differences and so on, but I don't know. Yes, now I cannot answer for this. So I have learned from Julia Adney Thomas. She has edited a book in Altered Earth, and that the main figure for our description in historical sciences, normally individuals or collectives, but we must count Earth system. And then this triangle, I have proposed a new project, but it's not successful. But in next year again, I would like to try. But it's always I'm now thinking about what kind of Earth system is connecting to individuals and collectives and so on. I have no time.
You still have time.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Last one. It's I'm thinking about the Earth system, and then this tipping point is very important for me because it's not so steady. It's almost so thin type is always precipitation, and others are wide range. And within the wide range, is it possible to sustain? So lastly, my approach is always environment in local history. Environment in local history has so many different type of elements. It's from the animals, plants, microorganisms, water, air, land, disasters, fruits, waste, humans. I think it's a local history has a universal one or holistic one, and so individual. But probably there could be a kind of universal criteria by which the resilience of the locality could be assessed. So it's my living spaces, but I will skip, and I will quote the last words from Amartya Sen. You know, the Nobel Prize winner from India is the first Nobel Prize winner and probably the last Nobel Prize winner outside from USA. The myth of all the ways of living can cause anguish and a deep sense of loss. It is a little like the extinction of all the species of animals. This is an issue of some seriousness, but it is up to the society to determine what, if anything, it wants to do to reserve all forms of living, perhaps even at significant economic cost. We would like to such a 17th century and 16th century map. The region is clear water circulation. It's not a GIS map. It's a, and then probably we have some kind of more artistic visualization for the future selections and so on. So thank you very much for your attention.